to do what we want to do.
Yeah, that's good.
We want to be free to ride. We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
Hi, how's everybody doing? My name is Mike Monteiro. Thank you for coming today. Before I start, I want to thank the conference organizers for inviting me. I also want to thank these two guys sitting here in what looks like a little communist booth for doing all of this amazing translating work. This is really difficult. I want to thank this lady down here who's doing sign language. That's amazingly hard work, so thank you. And I want to thank those people back there who are doing all the AV work. Are y'all union? You're union? No? You are? All right, I like you better than the other ones. So my name is Mike Monteiro, and I'm a designer. I'm also an immigrant in fascist-occupied America. And I have a question for you. Do you want to talk about design? Or do you want to talk about politics? At this moment in time, with the world being what it is, with civil liberties being threatened, with families being separated, with people being denied protection and services based on religion, based on gender, based on race, with refugees not being able to find a place to live. And once again, under the very real threat of nuclear war and under the threat of fascism, do you want to talk about design or do you want to talk about politics? Applause for design. Applause for politics. Guess what? It's a trick question. Design is always political. There is no difference between the two. Every choice that we make is political. From choosing who we work for, to the problems that we want to work on, to the decisions that we make while solving those problems, to the people involved in solving those problems, to the way those solutions are implemented, and especially, most especially, to the people those solutions are going to benefit or punish. Design is always political because design is labor. And your labor is political. And the political is always designed. But Mike, you idiot, we came to a design conference. We wanted to talk about design. We wanted to talk about something that we could put on Dribble or a temporary tattoo or a logo for a shoe company. That's what I thought design was. So let's define design for a second. Design is the intentional solution to a problem within a set of constraints. There's three parts of this. Number one, you need a problem to solve, like how to get from point A to point B, cutting down harassment on your platform, for example. There's a problem. That's a problem in search of a design solution. Increasing shareholder value is not a problem. It's a desire or a fetish. Next, you need to know the constraints. For example, the thing that we're designing has to be free, or it's got to be open to everyone, or the water coming out of the kitchen faucet has to be potable. Those are constraints. Then, once you understand the problem and understand the constraints, then you can come up with a solution intended to solve that problem. That's the intentional part. Design is the intentional solution to a problem within a set of constraints. Let's take a look at some examples. This wonderful, beautiful, elegant shape is North Carolina's 12th district. Now, this is designed, and it's designed this way for a very specific reason. Now, let me give you a very short history of how the US political system works. We've got 50 states, some are bigger than others, and each of those states is carved up into districts, depending on population. And each district gets to send one person to the House of Representatives. And each district gets redrawn every time that there's a census, which we do every 10 years. And it gets redrawn by the party in charge. North Carolina's 12th district was drawn up after the 1990 census, when they had enough of a population bump that they gained a new district. So the Republicans, who were in charge of North Carolina at the time, they came up with this elegant, obvious shape for what that district should look like. Now, do you want to know what's special about it? There aren't too many large cities in North Carolina, but this district manages to contain 3 of them: Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and Charlotte. You know what's special about those 3 cities in North Carolina? They have a majority African American population. So they drew this district to get as many African Americans into that one district as possible. That is designed. So let's go over our formula again. Who designed it? The Republican Party. What's the problem? Too many black people who tend to vote Democratic. What's the intent? To lessen their representation. Well, how do you do that? Let me show you. Let's say that a state has 50 people in it. And of those 50 people, 30 have a tendency to vote Democratic, and 20 have a tendency to vote Republican. That's a Democratic majority, and in a national election, this state is going to go Democratic. But when it comes time to vote for congressional representation, this state needs to be divided into districts, and those districts, by law, need to be as equal as possible in population. So let's say we divide it into 5 equal districts, each with 10 voters in it. You get 5 districts, each with a Democratic majority, which mirrors the population of the state. But what if we designed it a little differently, with a little bit of a different intent? What if we did a little border magic? What if we designed those districts a little differently? Let's take a look at this. Still 5 districts, still equal in population, but if you take a look very carefully, you'll see that a state that's 3/5 Democratic is now sending 2 Democrats to Congress and 3 Republicans. And they did this by grouping as many Democrats into those 2 districts as possible. So now it makes sense why you get a funny-looking district with Charlotte, Winston-Salem, and Greensboro in it, right? You following me so far? Okay. This is design. This is an intentional solution to a problem within a set of constraints. Now, you could do this at the national level, of course, and you might be familiar with something that we call the Electoral College. And a candidate with 3 million more votes than another candidate could lose an election in this very same way. And by the way, this is called gerrymandering. That's the word for it. It's also called subverting the will of the people. And it's undemocratic. Here are some more examples of it. This is Maryland's 3rd. Florida's 5th. And by the way, you see that little line right up top? That little line right up top is a 1-lane road that connects 2 freeways. Nobody lives there. You got Pennsylvania's 7th, Illinois' 4th, and Texas is 35th. These are the shape of design. These are designed for a reason, and you better believe that they are designed to screw someone. And not just someone, they are designed to keep the powerless from attaining power. They are designed to keep people from being represented. They are designed to keep you down. There's more. So the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act was signed into law in 1965. And it was signed into law to ensure that African Americans were not denied their right to vote. It was designed to be a safeguard against racism. People who gave a shit designed the Voting Rights Act to make sure that all Americans could participate in the electoral process, especially a group of Americans that had been systematically screwed by that country historically. And in 2016, the Supreme Court of the United States repealed the Voting Rights Act. They did away with it. And I shit you not, this is the reason that they said for repealing it. They said racism was over. They said that. So without the protection of the Voting Rights Act, many of the states with historically problematic race histories began designing laws to make voting harder, supposedly in the name of solving a problem called voter fraud. But since the United States has had about 4 actual cases of voter fraud in the last 20 years, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't sound like it's true. It wasn't. It was a lie. So what problem were they really solving? Oh yeah. We somehow elected a black dude. Well, we got to fix that. That was the problem. The solution? We got to get less black people to vote, because 99% of all black people in America voted for this guy. Was this an intentional solution? Yes. We know this. We know this because they broke a design rule. They broke the rule of constraints. One of the constraints of doing this is to not get caught. And they got caught. At least in North Carolina, they got caught. And what the judge said in this particular case confirms another design rule. There was intent. And just a few days ago, a federal judge in Texas decided the same thing. It's no matter, though, it worked fine. It worked fine in just enough places. In 2016, 14 new states, 14 of the 50, had new voting restrictions on the books. Restrictions made possible by the repeal of the Voting Rights Act. And they joined 6 states that had previously enacted voting restrictions. This was intentional. This was by design. This was an intentional solution to a problem within a set of constraints. These voting laws, these new voting laws that were enacted, were all to make it harder for black people to vote. We have a U.S. judge in North Carolina saying that on the record. And you'll see that North Carolina is not one of those states. But no matter, North Carolina was just the cherry on the shit sundae that was the 2016 election. And the 2016 election gave us this. And anyone who wants to defend this behavior can leave right now. This asshole is the result of that design decision. This is the result of intent. This is the result of that design decision. We have Nazis in the street punching people. This is a result of that design decision. And this is a result of that design decision. Years in the making, all with the intentional goal of further disenfranchising the powerless, all with the intentional goal of holding on to power, the last gasp of a hateful generation, the last gasp of a small-minded minority. And yes, when there are 3 million less of you, you are, by definition, a minority. Intent on blaming refugees, Muslims, immigrants, women, and other minorities for their own self-loathing. But you know what? This is also a result of that design decision. And this is also a result of that design decision. And this is also a result of that design decision. And that's why I'm up here today. I'm up here today because we designed our way into this, and we can design our way out of it. I'm here today because, strangely enough, I've never felt better about the future. I have seen people of all ages, all colors, all creeds come together to fight this shit. I have seen people protecting Muslims while they prayed in an American airport. There's no way that this would have happened before Trump was elected. And it happened because we were angry. We're here today because this fight is our fight as much as anyone's. We're here today because we don't get to opt out. I'm here today because we are all so interconnected on this planet that what happened over there, and I apologize for this, but what happened over there fucks you too. We need to look at the design decisions that got us to where we are today. We need to look at who made them. We need to look at who was left out of them. We need to look at who got screwed by them. And we need to look at who benefited from those decisions, because design is intentional. So a system designed to fuck someone is designed to fuck someone on purpose. And the people who designed it have to answer for their crimes. And the time has come for designers to stop taking orders and understand our proper role in society as gatekeepers. So when we talk about design, and trust me, we are talking about design. We have to talk about the ethics of designers, because a lack of ethics is a precursor to fascism. Our solutions can only be as good as we are. Our solutions can only be as good as the people designing them. And when the designers are rotten, the solutions are rotten. And when designers are contemptuous and filled with hate, the design will be contemptuous and filled with hate. Are you all familiar with the AIGA? It's a design organization in the United States. So a couple of weeks ago, they asked this question on Twitter: should the poor behavior of big businesses concern their designers who work for them? How the fuck is this even a question? How is this even worthy of debate? How are ethics in design even debatable? Can you imagine any other industry, any other craft debating whether they needed to consider ethics? Can you imagine doctors debating whether ethics are important? Can you imagine teachers debating whether ethics are important? As a community, have we fallen to the level of debating the importance of ethics that's usually reserved for politicians, bankers, hedge fund managers, pimps, and bookies? Apparently we have. This is Travis Kalanick. You guys know who he is? The CEO of Uber and Silicon Valley golden boy. Travis Kalanick, whose name rhymes with prick. Travis Kalanick joined Donald Trump's Business Advisory Council. And you know what? He did end up stepping down, but he stepped down because we were protesting for him to step down. He stepped down because of bad PR. He doesn't get credit for that. We get credit for that. We get credit for knocking his ass out of there. And as he was agreeing to work with Trump, this is what he told his employees: we will partner with anyone as long as they're making transportation better. Anyone. This is the 2017 version of Mussolini making the trains run on time. As long as it works to our benefit, we don't care how it happens. This is the exact opposite of ethics. And because I enjoy picking on Travis, let me show you another example. Susan Fowler, once an engineer at Uber, very courageously detailed out a history of harassment and abuse, not just by her managers at Uber, but also by their HR department, their human resources department. These are the people who are supposed to look out for employees. A department theoretically put in place to help you against management. But as workers continue to give up their rights, places like Uber become more and more like company towns of old, with HR departments behaving more like Pinkertons hired by the company to root out troublemakers. This is also by design. We spent a generation rolling back the rights of workers. Generations that were hard won. Rights that people died for. We have traded in those rights for the oblique promise of options and swordfish in the cafeteria. And you know what? You don't get to make fun of poor people buying lottery tickets when you've traded in all your rights for a chance to strike it rich when your startup goes public. It's the same damn thing. We've decided that we weren't workers at all. We decided we were temporarily embarrassed millionaires. Now, as an industry, we spend a lot of time talking about the future of work, but I gotta tell you, the future of work looks a lot like the past of work. No insurance, no benefits, no protection, no set hours, randomly set pay scales, no recourse to collective bargaining, and no one on the side of the worker. We didn't change the world. The only thing we disrupted was years of labor gains. We went backwards. The original sin of the new economy was convincing you that you weren't a worker. And when you go to work at one of these places, and for some reason you insist on doing that, it's strictly bring your own ethics, because you are going to work at places that have no ethical core. When Tesla employees attempted to unionize, Elon Musk suggested that maybe he could just give them some frozen yogurt instead. They do not exist to help you, and they do not exist to help the people using their services. They exist solely to turn a profit. And turning a profit is okay. What's not okay is doing it at your expense with your labor. And it takes a special kind of entitlement and self-delusion to compare yourself to the underdog when you are fighting to keep your employees from unionizing. Doing your job ethically is not a choice. It's part of who you are. It's part of how we do the job right. It's part of what you signed on to do when you decided you wanted to be a designer. And when you find yourself in a situation where you're working for one of these jerks, you need to be vigilant. Now, whether you call yourself a designer, an engineer, an entrepreneur, or God help us all, a CEO, working ethically is a non-negotiable part of the job, and it is the most important part of the job, especially now, the most important part of the job. And working ethically means working in the best interests of everyone. It means fulfilling your duty to make the world a better place. It means helping those who need the most help first. It means hiring people who look like the people whose problems are being solved. And it means no one gets left behind. And it means no one gets treated like a second-class citizen. That is who we need to be as designers. And we must work with intent. I need you all to take stock of who you are and what you're capable of doing. We are in the business of making things for a living. We make things exist. And even if you're hired by other people to make something that they want exist, you still have a responsibility to ask yourselves, are these good things? Are these good things that I'm bringing into the world? Or can these things be used to hurt others? Is the purpose of this thing that I am designing to keep others down? Is what I am doing today going to make the world a better place than it was before I made it? This was a proposal that was submitted for the U.S. border wall, the wall between the U.S. and Mexico. A design firm submitted it because they thought, well, if we're going to build a wall, it should at least be pretty. Fuck them. Design is always political, from who is making it to who it impacts. Telling yourself otherwise is a lie. You cannot design a good border wall. You cannot design a good Muslim database. You cannot design a good gun, because these things are inherently evil. And there is no pure form. We need to stop measuring form and start measuring the impact of our work. To measure the value of design, we have to measure the impact, not the form. Now, early last year, in the wake of one of the many shootings in America, the one in San Bernardino, the government demanded that Apple hack into a shooter's iPhone because it was encrypted. Do you remember this? Now, Apple refused. And in their refusal, Tim Cook, Apple CEO, said that writing that software and putting it in the government's hands would be too dangerous. He said he would not make this because then it will exist. And he will have brought it into the world. And when it gets misused, which it will, the blood will be on their hands as well. And not all of us, I know that not all of us get to work at a company that would take an ethical stand like that. And God knows they do a lot of things that are not that ethical. Some of us have to work for people. Some of us work for people like Travis Kalanick. In fact, I say that most of us probably work for people like Travis Kalanick. And it is your job as a gatekeeper, as a human being, and as a designer to stop the Travis Kalanicks of the world. But Mike, won't somebody else do it? Me stopping, me putting my foot down isn't going to do anything because somebody else will just do it, so I might as well get paid for it. I get this question a lot, and the answer is yes, they might. And holy shit, that can make you feel powerless. It really can. But here's the thing. Just because the person next to you might be an asshole, that's really not a good enough reason for you to be an asshole. I get that you don't want to lose your job. I get that you have rent to pay. But earning that at the expense of somebody else's livelihood is not a good way to live. So rather than ask yourself, won't somebody else make it? Ask yourself, what if me saying no is the inspiration for other people to stand up? What if me saying no is the first step in a movement? What if me saying no is the first step in making things right? Do I want you to get fired from your jobs? No. Do I think some of you might? Yes. I don't want to lie to you. I never said it would be easy, but I promise you it'll be worth it. Because in the end, if we stand up for ourselves, if we behave with agency, if we do the job right, we will become more effective. We will become more powerful. We will sleep better at night, and we will have done the right thing. We will be designing the world to be a better place. In order to do this, we're going to have to learn how to fight. We're going to have to learn how to fight our fear. We're going to have to learn how to fight our complacency. We're going to have to learn how to fight our lazy tendencies. And we're going to have to learn how to fight that little voice inside telling you that you cannot win. That little voice inside telling you that this is not your fight, because it is. Exactly. We may not have chosen this fight, but it is here. And it is part of our jobs to act. It is part of our jobs to safeguard people. And it is part of our jobs to design the world better. How do we do this? I have some ideas. First off, and I cannot stress this enough, get your shit together. Your mental health is important. If you are not taking care of yourself, you are in absolutely no position to take care of others. This is not a healthy looking human being. And right now, not taking care of yourself is the most selfish act possible because we need all of you. So go to your therapist, get back on your meds, get some physical activity. I can't watch that enough. Get those endorphins going because we need you strong and we need you healthy. And look, I know that it's really easy to start believing that all of this shit is overwhelming. Who the hell isn't freaked out about what's happening tomorrow in France, right? Every day there's a new horrible thing. Every day there's a new executive order. Every day there's a new Jewish cemetery being desecrated. Or an immigrant family being separated. A new law being passed to outlaw protests. A new attack on the press. It is exhausting. This is not an accident, by the way. This is also by design. They are trying to exhaust you, both mentally and physically. They want to tire you out. They want you to give up. But giving up is not an option. So taking care of yourself is not an option. I am standing up here proudly as a person who deals with depression every day of my fucking life, just barely holding their own shit together. But I take my meds, I talk to my anger lady, and I let my friends know when I need help because I want to be healthy for this fight. And if I don't feel healthy, I pull back and I take a breather because there are enough of us that we can do this shit in shifts if we need to. And you don't have to attend every march. You don't even need to march at all if that's not your thing. There are some low-key ways that you can help out, and I'll mention a few of them today. And you don't need to be on Twitter, and feel free to block your racist relatives on Facebook, please. They're going to exhaust you, and they're not going to change your minds. You cannot reason people out of a position they did not reason themselves into. Logic does not work with fascists. Step 2, we need you to be a citizen. Before we need you as a designer, we need you as a citizen. As a citizen, there are 3 things that you can give. You can give time, you can give money, and you can give haven. Give what you can of each. Now, the most important thing that we've been doing in the US is making phone calls, because it turns out that all of those people in Congress, they don't read tweets, they don't read emails, but they do track the amount of phone calls that they have. And earlier this year, a couple of friends of mine created this app called 5calls.org. And this is an example of designers just, putting what they know to use, being good citizens. And it's incredibly useful. It tells you, the issues that we need to deal with today. And we've yet to run out, by the way. That's always full. And it tells you who to call, and it tells you what to say. This is a great example of somebody giving their time and giving their expertise to help out. Now, other ways you can give time is obviously going to these marches. This is a great sign, by the way. IKEA is a sponsor here, right? So you should feel good about this. But listen, I'm serious about this. I don't want all of you sitting here thinking, what can I do as a designer? Because your dentist isn't sitting there thinking, what can I do as a dentist? I need you to think, what can I do as a citizen? Because before anything else, you are a citizen. So make the apps, make the signs, make the posters, make the buttons. Just know that none of this absolves you from your responsibility as a citizen. Only 40% of Americans voted in the last presidential election. That's criminal. A few years ago, Dana Chisnell, a friend of mine, designed these amazing field guides for ensuring voter intent. And they're small, they're well written, they're immaculately researched, and they range in topics from designing usable ballots to creating forms that help voters take action to testing ballots for usability. These were made for people who run elections. They're totally nonpartisan, and their only goal is ensuring intent. And for my money, these are the greatest piece of design of the last 25 years. And you can find out more about them by Googling the Center for Civic Design. which is Dana's organization. And I love this line. We believe that democracy is a design problem. And that's why we're talking about it at a design conference. Number 3, if you want to fight fascism, you have to do it in this order. First, you have to fix yourself. Then you have to fix your house. Then you can fix your street. Then you can fix your neighborhood. Then you can fix your city. Then you can fix your country. That's the order that we work in. You start small and you work up. Get a grip on what's going on in your local community and find out where you can help. Maybe it's making sure that your neighborhood is clear of swastika graffiti. Maybe it's making sure that the 2 Muslim kids who live down the street have a clear path getting to school every morning and a clear path getting home at night. Maybe it's making sure that everybody feels welcome if you own a shop or something. This election was lost at the local level. We won it at the national level. So find out who your elected officials are. Find out what they think about things. Find out what their positions are, and find out when their terms are up. And you know what? I am getting really, really tired of people referring to this wave of bullshit as a populist movement. From the fuckers who destroyed America, to the fuckers who are destroying Great Britain, to the fuckers who are about to destroy France. These assholes do not represent the will of the people. They are looking out for no one but themselves. If we want leaders who truly represent the people, those leaders need to emerge from the people. And right now, more than ever, we need leaders to emerge from the people. And I'm also getting really sick of this. I'm tired of hearing people talk about how we live in a bubble. We do not live in a bubble. We live in the world. If you look around, you will see people of all different ethnicities, all different creeds, all different everything. That is what the world looks like. If you go to big major cities across the world, that is the world. It's the idiots who live in America who believe that America is a white country run by white people, run by Christians who have, by the way, are not really following the beliefs of Christ very well. Those motherfuckers are living in a bubble. You live in the world. Oh, and for those of you who are thinking, but I can't run for office. I've done really bad things. I've dropped acid so many times. I'm on acid right now. Don't give it another thought. Those days are over. If this clown can get himself elected, there is absolutely no way that you could have done anything that makes you unelectable. And if you have, I'm really afraid to be in this room with you right now. Number 4, if you want to fight fascism, you cannot follow the orders of fascists. And you know what? If it were as easy as somebody walking up to you and saying, "Hello, I am a fascist, and I have orders for you," that would be great. That would be super easy. But it's not that easy. What you need to do is you need to question every single thing that you are asked to do, no matter where you work. I'm not trying to get you all to quit your jobs and go work for Greenpeace. I'm trying to get you to pay attention to the decisions that you are being asked to make, no matter where you work. Ask yourself where those things could lead, because our goal here isn't just to thwart fascism in the here and now. It's to help build a better world where fascism has a much harder job taking root. And that means designing a world where all voices are honored, where all races are treated equally, where trans people can live without fear, where your success is not determined by the color of your skin or by the God you choose to pray to or not to pray to, or by whatever juicy bits might be hanging between your legs. Because the minute that you start marginalizing people, you have created the perfect petri dish for fascism to grow. Here's an article I came across recently. Palantir provides the engine for Donald Trump's deportation machine. Palantir, for those of you unfamiliar with the devil, is the data mining company founded by Peter Thiel. Who's familiar with Peter Thiel? I'll show you in a second. This Peter Thiel is the guy who took down Gawker by bankrolling somebody else's lawsuit. And regardless of how you might feel about Gawker, the idea that an individual can shut down the press by brute force bankrolling lawsuits that he had nothing to do with should scare the shit out of you. Peter Thiel is also a Trump crony. So his company, Palantir, is designing the data mining operation that ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is using to identify and to round up immigrants. Here's a process diagram for that database. Now, some of you may understand what this does, some of you may not. Doesn't really matter. Here's the thing that's important. This was made by a designer of some sort. Maybe they call themselves a designer, maybe they call themselves an engineer, it doesn't matter. What matters is that they knew what this was going to be used for before they designed it. And other designers are going to come in after this one, and they're going to do the interface. And then someone else is going to come in and they're going to do the back end, etc., etc., etc. They are all following orders, except those orders are unethical. This is intended to cause harm to others. And as a designer, this has to matter to you. This is no different than building Hitler's concentration camps. No different. Now this brings us back to Tim Cook and that decryption software. Remember that? Something we consider too dangerous to create. We create these things. Our labor is in them. And when your labor is in something, you bear the responsibility for what you create. And you can't just wash your hands of it. If you're designing a gun, you can't be surprised when it's used to kill someone. If you're designing decryption software, you can't be surprised when that decryption software is used to hack into people's private information. And when you're designing data mining software targeted at immigrants, you can't be surprised when that software is used to round up immigrants. This job that we do carries with it a set of ethics that are just as important, if not more important, than any other skill that we need to hone. And the question of, should I design it, is infinitely more important than can I design it. It is your duty as a designer to bring up things that do not pass an ethical test. And having brought them up, if you find yourself in a position where your concerns are being dismissed, or you find out that hurting others is the actual goal of the thing that you're designing, you need to bring that work to a grinding halt. And it is also my duty and your duty that if you find out you are working with designers who do not care about the ethics of design, do everything in your power to talk them out of being a designer. The stakes are too high right now. In 1971, Victor Papanek published Design for the Real World. By the way, this is the best design book that you will ever read, if you can get your hands on it. This is the very first sentence of that book. There are professions more harmful than industrial design, but only a very few of them. This predates the internet as we know it. So I can only imagine what Victor would have had to say about the dangers of the digital age. The shit that we design now is so enmeshed in people's lives. We have devices that are watching us, tracking us, measuring us, telling us when to take our meds, helping us get off. you hear about this? This got hacked. It's a smart vibrator. It got hacked. And all your data was out there for the world. And I'm not so much telling you that these things are awful. They're not. I'm trying to point out how very, 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 very careful that we have to be in how we design them. Let's pick on Travis a little bit more. Travis cannot stop being in the news. March 3rd, 2017, Mike Isaac of the New York Times publishes an expose of an internal tool used at Uber called Greyball. Greyball is used in cities where Uber and the local government are fighting, or cities where Uber just decided to go in and operate illegally because they don't need to follow rules. It's a database that keeps track of accounts that Uber thinks might be associated with city officials or police enforcement or investigators. And when any of those people in that database try to hail a car, they get a fake map that shows that no cars are available. This is called lying. And it's unethical as shit. It was unethical to conceive. It was unethical to design. It's unethical to implement. It's unethical to maintain. Every Uber employee that touched Greyball anywhere along that path behaved unethically. They designed with the purpose of deceiving a segment of the population. And never forget that the one thing that companies like Uber and everybody else in that fucking sharing economy need to exist is income disparity. The entire service economy is built on that premise. We need one group of people who have enough income and shit that they don't want to do to pay a second group of people who are starving for income to do that menial shit. The rise of fascism in America came at the time of the highest income disparity that country has ever seen. This is not an accident. This is by design. And this is where Silicon Valley is putting its money. So more than ever, we need to look at who's designing the world. We need to look at how we're designing it. And don't look for much resistance from Silicon Valley, which is run by rich white boys, towards a government run by the men that they aspire to become someday. Take stock in who you're working for, what you're making, and who they're hiring and not hiring to make it. We have serious problems to solve. So make sure that you're working at places that are interested in solving them. And if you're working at large companies, especially companies in the social space, keep an eye out for how your products affect the marginalized. Work on ways to empower those that need empowering. Companies that only employ white boys will only ever solve problems for white boys. As designers, we need to fulfill our mission of being gatekeepers. Your job is to improve the world for everyone, not just those in power. And when you are asked to do something that can marginalize people, you must stop. When you are asked to come up with a solution that tightens the grip of fascism on your community, you must stop. And not just move over so that somebody else can take your place, but you need to throw yourself across the gears and destroy that machine forever. This is the job. This is the job you signed up for. We do not work with fascists. There is no reason to reach out to fascists. We do not build bridges to fascism. When your worldview is based around denying others their civil rights, you forfeit yours. And if you help them in advancing their agenda, you are no better than they are. Finally, We're in this situation because we designed the world to work this way. The rescinding of the Voting Rights Act, the gerrymandering of congressional districts, the existence of the Electoral College, the underfunding of schools to create an undereducated electorate. We did all that, and we're going to have to undo it. This is going to take a fuck ton of time, which honestly, I'm not sure that we have, but we have to try. And as Henry Rollins recently said, this is the fight that Joe Strummer trained us for. And sadly, he's no longer with us. But you know what? We got Killer Mike. Look at him talking about Hitlering and Mussoliniing, and look, he's talking to Bernie. And right now, as we speak, my friend Dana Chisnell is working on how to improve our election process at the Center for Civic Design. And part of me thinks she's insane, because we're not going to survive to get there. But I'm trying to listen to the part of me that wants to ensure that she has a chance to do this work. My friend John Hanawalt is finding old Nazi propaganda from World War II and updating them for our modern age and handing these out at protests. My friend Max Temkin, who you may know as the Cards Against Humanity guy, is sending out copies of his new secret Hitler game to every U.S. senator. There's Max. And when Senator Ron Johnson started sending cease and desist letters to protesters who were disrupting his town halls, Max set up a site where you could mail the senator a potato for $5. Now, are either of these things going to change the world? No, they're not. Now, are they funny as hell? A little bit. But shit like this gives us a little bit of hope. And holy shit, hope is what we need so much of right now. My friend Robin Canner, built this site on her own time. It's called My Trans Health. And it's a database of medical stuff for trans kids who have no idea what to do about their health, and it tells you like what you can find. It's a fantastic resource. And this is from Dan Sinker. He took his kid to the library, and his kid checked out a book on Islam, and inside the book there was a letter and a $5 bill, and somebody anonymously just put it in there and said, we just wanted to reward a kid who wanted to find out about Islam. And more importantly, all across America and all across the world, people are speaking out. They're organizing, they're calling Congress, they're showing up at town halls, they're walking out of government jobs because they don't want to aid this administration. And designers need to do their part too. We're going to be asked to build their databases. We're going to be asked to design their walls. We're going to be asked to create things that increase income disparity. We got to fight this shit. Now, some of us might lose our jobs when we do that, but I would rather live poor and free than rich and compromised. So we fight. We fight because we can't not fight. We fight because maybe this is the cliche, darkest before the dawn. We fight because if we don't, people get beat up. They get rounded up. They get stripped of their dignity and they get killed. And while this may or may not happen in a large government-sanctioned way, it's definitely going to happen in small pockets of deplorable misery throughout the world. And there are things that we can do to prevent it. We have to try. And in the words of the great Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that the best laid plans of fascists can't compete with the resiliency of a free people. The best laid plans of Hitler to throw himself a nice Aryan showcase of an Olympic Games were ruined by a skinny kid from Alabama named Jesse Owens. Jesse fought, so we fight. The best laid plans of Montgomery Mayor W.A. Gale to tell people where they could or could not sit on his buses were ruined by a tiny little seamstress named Rosa Parks deciding she was going to sit where she wanted. Rosa fought, so we fight. And during the Vietnam War, the government forced its citizens to fight in a war that we had no business being in and no chance of winning and no idea why we were even fighting it. Well, they sent a draft notice to the wrong guy. Muhammad Ali, not just one of our greatest African Americans, not just one of our greatest Muslim Americans, but he is one of our greatest Americans, period. Muhammad fought. Just not the way they wanted him to fight. And never forget his great words, we don't have to be what they want us to be. Muhammad fought and fought and fought, and they took away everything he had. And he fought some more, and he wore them down, and we will wear them down. And on December 13th, 1981, when Jaruzelski imposed martial law on Poland to crush the pro-democracy movement, and that is what a pro-democracy movement looks like. It was a mid-level shipyard electrician who fought back. And was he perfect? No. He was as flawed as you and as flawed as me. He was an ordinary human being like you and me. But he did the thing that needed to be done at the time it needed doing. And do not let them steal your heroes from you. We have too few of them, and we need all we have. So do not let them rewrite this history. Lech fought, so we fight. I want you to remember that we are free people. We are free to choose how we spend the time that we have on this earth. And I implore you to use it, to use that time in the interest of making others free. If you want to change how the world is designed, you have to change not just how we're designing it, but who is designing it. I want you to remember that you are lucky. You are lucky that the world has been designed more or less in your favor. You have homes. You have food on your table. You have jobs. You have enough money to come to a design conference. And that luck carries with it the responsibility to help others who aren't so lucky. But most of all, I want you to remember that you are more than designers. You are citizens. You are ordinary people. You are bound by the same contract as every other human being on this planet. And our job is to help and elevate each other. And I wish you all the strength that you need to resist. Thank you.